All right, so guys, let's get into a little bit of the NFT drama that's been going on between Mark Cuban and OpenSea today. We'll break all this down for you. I think it's going to give you a little bit more insight, maybe where the future of smart contracts and NFTs are going to be going. So my name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. I want to start off with a couple of things here. And one of the things that is key is the strategy of OpenSea. I'll go to this Verge article. Web3 was supposed to make sure that the original artists got paid. Not so much anymore. OpenSea now, the biggest NFT marketplace, still fully enforcing royalty fees, said today that it plans to stop the mandatory collection of resale fees for artists. So this was a big move, and it was one that I think got a lot of pushback in many areas, both from the creator side, but also from the trader side. So there's really kind of two camps here. You've got people who, of course, collect the NFTs and these creations, and you have the artists and their creators or the projects that are developing these. And that's where the two don't necessarily come together and meet too well. I want to jump over to a couple of tweets here. OpenSea, they aren't creator fees. This is now the new statement from OpenSea. They're royalties. Please correct your terms and stop making it sound like artists and creatives are taxing the people. And remember, whether you are, and first of all, be clear, obviously we're a creator, so we're very pro creators, but anytime you put the work and effort, research, time, all that due diligence in developing a project, there should be an expectation of you getting, some sort of, rewards for that. And of course, the idea around smart contracts has always been the core basis of an NFT has always been about being able to get those royalties as that NFT continues to move down the line. Further into these tweets here, you can kind of see here a little bit about what's happened here since that, of course, has occurred. OpenSea royalties fell off once they became optional. So you can kind of see here, once they were optional, pretty much that put the situation under the bus in the sense of these royalty fees absolutely dissipating. And that's been the problem. And if you look at the value of some of the best NFT projects out there, I'll go over to Bored Ape just to give you an example here. Floor price on Bored Ape. Now, some of this may be because of the marketplace, but again, part of this is really in response to what's been happening mostly, I think, around all the marketplaces and what has been happening around creators and royalties. So this again gets back to the whole issue. Now, Bored Ape hitting a floor that it has never seen before at around 26 ETH. So that in itself is another major statement. Now, Mark Cuban is a huge NFT fan, but more importantly, he is a huge fan of smart contracts and why he believes that smart contracts are essentially the future of business. They're the future of all things when you think about tokenizing the world. And this is going to happen in all sorts of things, not just necessarily in music or art. This is going to happen in any kind of intellectual property at all. Mark Cuban went to Twitter and simply said this, all right, royalties on NFT and sales is a huge mistake by OpenSea. It diminishes the trust in the platform. It hurts the industry. I say this as an OpenSea investor, and this, of course, he's tagging Devin Frinzer there, the CEO. One other thing he says right here, it's not smart, it's desperation. Now, this is the scenario. OpenSea is losing market share to some other platforms who have also started to kind of campaign on the idea of preying, I'll say it, preying on the creator by not requiring these royalties to be paid out. Headline right here, of course, this is A16Z. Mark Cuban invests $23 million in the NFT platform OpenSea. This, of course, is the money behind it. And when you think about that and really the future of where OpenSea is going to be, I hope that this was not a bad investment on Cuban's part. And I think he's now trying to defend it. And if you follow what's been happening on Twitter, Cuban's been out there pretty much waging war on Twitter to kind of defend the idea of smart contracts and creator royalties, which is really the core element here. And of course, back to the Verge article, that's really what NFTs were really built around. And any kind of intellectual property, whether you think music, film, teaching, I mean, you could just create something out there and you've got an IP. The opportunity there that smart contracts bring to the Web3 space are huge. Further into this is Cuban again, hitting in here, making transactions. This is kind of a bad idea. Free for NFTs that pay their royalty and then take a % of the royalty as a fee. The originators still get paid most of the royalty, which obviously is better than nothing. And OpenSea gets paid an amount that probably is better than the transaction fee. Let me kind of zoom in on the response there. Problem is that competitors don't do it. So how can OpenSea even compete with Blur or LooksRare who aren't enforcing that? And both I mean, it's at least an attempt here. I think Cuban right now is shooting from the hip a little bit, but to think this through, really all you have to do is step back and look at what has been happening over with Solana. And these are around the idea of programmable NFTs. And I'll break this down for you. I want to get into a couple of things before we do that. Remember, this is Mark Cuban's NFT collection. You can kind of see, I mean, he's sitting on board at yachts. He's got a mutant in there. All right, just as a reminder, he's got both Ethereum and Solana NFTs. So interesting, again, good stuff from Mark Cuban. The fact that he is very committed to what's happening in not only smart contracts, but really the future of where NFTs are going. So I think this is the right kind of person to at least maybe convince what's happening over with OpenSea and also other marketplaces out there, because this is really a critical time for the future of how smart contracts, NFTs are going to work. I want to jump to a clip here of Yat Siu. He kind of goes into a full explanation, and I think it will clear up a lot of this. Listen in.
So Yuga has made hundreds of millions of dollars in royalties, which then bred an ecosystem that allowed for things like mutants and kennel dogs and eventually the other deed, what happened with ApeCoin. And you see this with all of these other projects. So what's actually happening is that system that some people say they don't like is actually a benefit that has paid forward, because it essentially is the equivalent of protecting, in this case, the ecosystem that is Yuga and any other project out there. We've now come to a point where royalties are effectively close to zero. And the way we think of this is that the free rider effect here is that those people who trade and don't pay a royalty fee affect the system because they're not paying for it. And eventually you have what happens, which is market failure. And when market failure happens, it's because there's not enough value and money that goes back into the ecosystem to maintain it. The most famous example, obviously, is music. The tragic thing was that it became normal not to pay for music. Making music and having it streamed gives you paid almost nothing. It's like a promotional tool. And who benefits? The platforms. And the same goes for teachers. People are selling teacher NFTs, for instance, where they earn royalties. If you don't have royalties on that, teachers don't get additional income from this. This is not just about artists. It's for all sorts of creators. The protection of private property rights is what makes capitalism work. When we talk about fees and royalties, it is a property right of the creator. It is for the creator to decide. If he wants to do 0% royalties to have market share, that's fine. He can do so. But it's not for someone else to say, hey, I want to just change your royalty rights and gain market share. So this is an absolute impingement of our rights as people. Marketplaces that take from creators are violating the rights of others and is hurting the entire ecosystem. And the way that we should respond is to honor the royalties and fight back.
All right, I think Yat Siu kind of hit it right there on the head, guys. This is really kind of one of those times where you draw a line in the sand, especially when you look at the markets. And I would defend both the creators, but I also am going to help the traders. The traders out there need to realize that this is a requirement for the ecosystem to exist. If it doesn't exist, you never have the opportunity to trade in the first place and be able to get access to these great IPs that end up making you money on the NFTs. So you basically are shooting yourself in the foot. Now I get it. It's, short-term gain really in being able to kind of evade the idea of paying these critical royalties, which really support the entire ecosystem. So I'm Team Yat Siu on this in terms of where this needs to go. But this was, of course, a tweet right over here by Clanazors. Should we tell him? Of course, this is just kind of this a concept of shifting over from the Ethereum-based NFTs, moving over to Solana. Reason being is we get into programmable NFTs, what Solana has been able to do for quite some time. They actually addressed this almost a year ago. I want to go over to a couple of clips here. One clip we're going to get into was done at Breakpoint, and this is Metaplex, again, talking about programmable NFTs and what they are. Listen in.
If you are on crypto Twitter, which I assume most of you are, it's been near impossible to have missed the rapidly evolving conversation and shifting community sentiment around royalties, with major marketplaces fighting to capture trading volumes by allowing sales on their platform that bypass creator royalties. We believe that this creates a structural risk to the NFT economy at large because it breaks the incentive alignment between creators and their communities. As a result, we're excited to announce that we will be extending token metadata, the base layer program for Solana NFTs, to provide on-chain royalty enforcement for both new and existing collection. The royalties non-fungible asset class is an NFT that can only be transferred through new instructions on token metadata. And identity is a new asset class introduced alongside of it that will enable free transfers between wallets owned by the same person. Because it extends token metadata, we are able to support existing collections, or the majority of existing collections, and migrating to the new royalties non-fungible asset class, should they choose to do so. I know this is just the beginning, and let's try some new shit out.
All right, so this is very bullish for Solana, but also I think very bullish for NFTs and the future of smart contracts in general. I want to go to this next clip of Metaplex talking a little bit more about how this works. Listen in.
Give your NFT a name, description, a relevant link, limited edition for a specific amount to be minted. Select your choice and set the secondary sales royalties, the percentage the creators will receive for every secondary sale. If we want to add any properties to our NFT, we can do so in the Properties tab. Now in the Splits tab, you can add more creators or a charity wallet to receive a split of the sale. Now our NFT is being created. Wait for the image and metadata to upload. We get an NFT creator message, and it should also show in your Phantom wallet.
All right, so a couple of things here. When you look at the core framework in which creators have been working in Web 2, what Yat Siu talked a little bit about there was kind of this breakdown of the music system. And that simply means that these platforms essentially have become marketing engines for a lot of, and most likely that'll be the case for OpenSea. You're going to probably start seeing a lot of ads and things of that nature that's going to change the dynamic of how they'll make money. And that's okay. There are needs for that. And that's an existing model that works out in Web 2. In Web 3, what is going to happen, I think, is we're going to see more programmable NFT platforms, as well as strategies coming in from the creators that are going to start looking at almost like what we've seen in Web 2 on this direct-to-consumer type aspect of how small micro brands have been able to build and compete against the biggest brands by using, whether it's social media, awareness tactics, all sorts of guerrilla marketing. Those kind of things all happen. I think the NFT creators are going to have to fight back a little bit here and really get good at marketing. Now, if you look at some of the things that have happened with Metaplex so far, a lot of new collections here, but the big deal is 33 million in mints. That's a big deal. And if you look at that, look at the rise right here in the amount of programmable NFTs being minted here. So that in itself, I think, is a pretty significant thing versus if you look at what's happening with something like an Immutable, which expanded the enforcement royalties to protect their creator royalties. The problem is it gets locked into the system, and when you get locked into a system, what happens? It drives the value of the pricing down. You'll start to see the value of what some of these collections are starting to see. And you'll notice, look at these. I mean, this is Illuvitar's right there, Illuvium, only $9,100 in US dollars right there as far as the transactions. And these are the problems that eventually this kind of situation resolves into. And that is simply these platforms end up basically pushing the creators into a no-win situation. So what do the creators do? They find a better place. Find a place to go direct. Find a place that is implementing the kind of aspect that we're seeing with Solana around programmable NFTs and what that future might mean. The key here is it's all being done on chain. That's the advantage of blockchain. That's how technology advances to this next layer, which is Web 3. Now, I know a lot of this may be new to some of you guys out there right now. Maybe this is the first time you've watched something about Web 3 and NFTs. The best thing I can tell you is keep watching, keep going down the rabbit hole, because I think what you're going to see over time is every business, every creator, every entity you can imagine in the next decade will eventually move to some sort of smart contract platform and initiation of whether it's products, services, part physical, part digital, or all the way on digital goods. All of that is coming, and it's coming because of what Web3 and is happening around smart contracts. So stick around. You're going to learn a lot, and I think hopefully it will start to open your eyes to really how business will be done in the future and how creators are going to change kind of the format here. So it's going to be a big one. All right, if you are not part of our Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. It's one of the best ways that you can get additional content. We do a podcast over there. Kyle does a great job on our Web3. We talk a lot about NFTs, but we also dive into the business of NFTs and Web3 in general. You also get additional content from me where I do market analysis, more macro news, some project breakdowns, all that good stuff. All you have to do is click the link down below to join. It's very simple and very easy. If you want to catch me, it's out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.